line with us is the Executive Director of AmericansForTaxFairness.org, Frank Clemente. Frank, by the way, the Twitter handle is number 4 tax fairness, 4 tax fairness on Twitter. Frank, welcome back to the program. We have this year-end window for Congress to get things done before the Republicans take over the House and weirdness sets in. And there are apparently a whole bunch of corporations who are really pushing their own agendas here with regard to tax law. Tell us about it.
Yeah, what's new, huh, Tom?
Yeah, there you go.
This is like the Christmas, every holiday season, we have big corporations coming in and trying to get their tax deals, tax breaks stuffed into the bill that's going to pass at the last minute. And, some years they have gotten $400 or $500 billion in corporate tax breaks stuffed into these bills. It's a very painful process to watch. I am hoping that we've gotten the Democrats pretty aligned this year to not make it terrible, but it still may not be good. I never trust this. Anyway, there's 3 big corporate tax breaks. Little history. Remember the Trump tax cuts that passed in 2017?
Right.
They got a 40% tax break as part of that deal, right? Huge corporate tax cut. Cost $1 trillion to give them that.
So we basically gave $1 trillion to America's largest corporations in 2017.
Right.
And they want to keep that going, right?
Well, I would say Congress, they cut their tax rate from 35% down to 21%.
Right. But when I said we gave it to them, it's because now our taxes have to pay the bills that their taxes were going to pay, to maintain our country. So,
and remember, Trump was president and the GOP controlled both chambers. So the Democrats all voted against these measures. But anyway, it was Republicans. So as part of that deal, they had to help pay for some of they had to minimize somewhat less than the cost of that 40% tax cut. And so the deal they struck was there were 3 big tax breaks, and they got those tax breaks for the first 4 or 5 years, but then they went away or they changed. They got to be less tax breaks starting in 2022, this year. Mm-hmm. 2 go away this year, 1 goes away next year. And now they're trying to renege on that deal. And they're trying to claw it back and say, no, let's just keep extending those tax breaks that you gave us in 2017 to help pay for that 40% tax cut we got. We want you to keep extending those loopholes for us until the 10 years are up. And then we'll come back to you and figure it out again. That's what they are after. And it's horrible, disgusting, and we've got to stop it.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. Who is working on this in Congress, and where are the danger points? I mean, who are the Democrats who might be inclined to go along with these corporations, and who are the Democrats who are fighting to prevent this from happening?
Well, let me say, typically, a lot of Democrats want to go along with these corporations. There's one big tax break, the research and experimentation tax deduction, that they had a vote in the Senate on it, and it passed 94 to 5.
Wow.
4. So that's Democrats like some of this stuff.
Right.
The private equity industry, one of these tax breaks is a big one for private equity. It allows for interest tax deduction. So
that's the one that Kyrsten Sinema kept with her vote blowing. She blew up a piece of legislation that would have stopped that, didn't she? Like last year?
Not this particular tax break, but in the Inflation Reduction Act that was being passed
that's right.
earlier this year, she basically we got private equity included in having to pay the 15% corporate minimum tax. She got that excised. She said, I'm not going to support it if you include private equity in this calculation of the 15% corporate minimum tax. And she also said, I'm not going to allow you to pass the carried interest deduction, which would take away they pay 20% on their income now. If they had gotten rid of that, they would have had to pay ordinary income tax rates, which is 37%. She said, no, I'm not going to let that. Anyway, so private equity has a big stake in one of these tax breaks. So we have basically the play that the Democrats are trying to make is, if you are insisting on getting these corporate tax breaks, you have to agree to our position, which is improve the child tax credit. And your listeners may remember child tax credit was passed as part of one of the COVID response bills. It enhanced the benefits a lot. Not only that, but it allowed people to get their child tax credit every month. And you also got it whether you were being taxed, whether you were paying income taxes or not. Really low income people don't pay income taxes. They don't have enough income to pay, and they were missing out on a lot of the child tax credit. That legislation gave it to them 100%, whether they were paying taxes or not. That went away. It only lasted for 1 year. The Democrats are trying to get it back in as part of this deal. So if they get corporate tax breaks, we get kids. So it's corporations versus kids. That's what this battle's coming down to. Wow. And you've got people like Sherrod Brown and Senator Sherrod Brown, Michael Bennet in the House, Representative Rosa DeLauro from Connecticut. And you've got the leadership, Democratic leadership in both parties and also the president. They are basically saying no corporate tax breaks without a kid helping kids.
Right.
Child tax credit. So that's where it's coming down to. But it's ridiculous that we should even be facing this. It should be.
Plus, both of those are expenses. I mean, you know, not getting money from corporations means that you and I have to, our tax dollars or the debt of the country pays those bills. And then the child tax credit is an expense as well. I mean, it's one I'm in favor of, but it seems crazy to say we're going to balance an expense with another expense. Right.
Well, and these three corporate tax breaks, if they were renewed for the 10 years, the way Congress budgets, it's over a 10-year cycle. Renewing them costs $600 billion. Okay. Wow. That's more than half of the corporate tax break they got in 2017. That $600 billion could pay for 4 or 5 years of child tax credit, full benefits for the lowest income folks in the country. And remember, that child tax credit, that reduced child poverty by 40% in 1 year.
Wow.
So that's a very good way to spend money. It's like giving people, it's like giving them a huge minimum wage boost, something like that. And suddenly they were able to afford things that they couldn't afford beforehand.
We're talking to Frank Clemente. He's the executive director of AmericansForTaxFairness.org, number 4 Tax Fairness on Twitter. Frank, for people who are listening or watching the program right now and are not fans of more corporate tax breaks or basically what we're talking about here is extending the Trump tax cuts, the parts that are expiring. Who do you call? What do you say? How can we best essentially become citizen lobbyists around this? And obviously, step one would be to go to AmericansForTaxFairness.org and read all about it. But what's next?
The most important thing is to put phone calls into the offices of your senators and member of your House representative.
Okay.
And use the switchboard. It's 202-224-3121. And you plug in what your state is, and it will automatically send you to one of your senators. You have to call back and get the other one, and then you have to do a third time to get your representative. Both chambers, it's more important to call the Senate at this point in time. They have more leverage. That's where the negotiation is happening more than the House. And just simply say, you don't want any more corporate tax cuts. Yeah. No, don't vote for any more corporate tax cuts. That'll put the strong message in there that the Democrats shouldn't cave. They will still go for the deal on the child tax credit, but not to cave on the corporate tax credit.
Totally get it. 202-224-3121. Frank Clemente, Americans for Tax Fairness. Thanks, Frank. Thanks for dropping by.
Thank you.
Great talking with you. We'll be right back. It's 15 minutes past the hour.